Welcome to Unity of Charlotte. Good afternoon. We're so glad to have you here. Whether you're joining us in person, joining us on Zoom, maybe or even watching this on a YouTube afterwards, we're just happy that you've joined us to share the Sunday message with us today. At Unity, we have a mission statement. This is our guiding statement for our purpose of being. So please join me in speaking forth these words, our mission. Unity of Charlotte is the place where we nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. Simply put, we are here to love, grow, and serve. Thank you. Do we have anybody who is here for the first time visiting? Hi there. Welcome. We'd like to offer a visitor's packet if you'd like to have it. It gives us a little more information about who we are. And please feel free to stay. This is a particularly special Sunday because at fellowship time, we're actually going to be doing an annual meeting. You are more than welcome to stay for that. But otherwise, we welcome you back because normally we have a free fellowship where everybody gets to mingle and chat and talk. And so I invite you to come speak to the reverends, myself or my husband, Jim. Reverend Jim, or anybody who's here in our congregation that would be happy to let you know more about Unity. We're just happy to see you here. We also invite everyone to reach out and check us out on our new website. We have several ways that you can find out more about Unity of Charlotte now. We have our newsletter, our Facebook page, our past services on YouTube if you want to see any of those. And we have a bulletin board that we are working on getting all our new events updated and our ongoing events listed. So you can go be there to see what's going on here. So we invite you to check all of those things out. And now let's take a nice deep breath in as we come together in a moment of prayer. Prayer, a time we turn within. We move from our head to our heart and we invite into our awareness the divine presence, which is our very essence. We live and move and breathe in the divine life of God. And now we center ourselves, deeply rooted in the knowledge of our spiritual nature, the love, the strength, the wisdom that comes from this place and expresses through us as individuals, especially as we come together as a community, to find the ways to break down barriers and come together in a way that creates a richer, more harmonious tapestry of diversity. We know this is possible, and we claim it to be so now, as we thank this God, mind, and universe for all of the goodness that is already present. And so it is. Amen. And now if you would claim with me the unity prayer of oneness. Together, there is one presence and one power in my life and universe. God, the good omnipotence. Yes, indeed. And now I offer the next couple of moments in silence for you to offer up the name of someone that you may want to hold in prayer and uplift to spirit. You may speak that name out loud or silently to yourself as we open the space in silence. And as we close this prayer, we know that spirit is already alive and active in each and every person, each and every situation, bringing about good and the best outcome for all. And so it is. Just a reminder that we have an amazing prayer team that will hold your prayers. If you would like to make a prayer request to have it held in prayer with the team, we have several ways you can do that. You can go on our website and fill out a form. We have a prayer box right here with forms. You can come and fill out a form, put it in the box, it will be collected. And I feel like Silent Unity, if you want to reach out to Silent Unity, you can use the 1-800-NOW-PRAY. Yes, I got it. But our prayer team will hold these prayers in total confidence. They will pray over them for 30 days. They then get sent to Silent Unity where they're held in prayer for another 30 days. So please know that you have prayer support here. Now I'd like to invite up our daily word reader, Kay and Mickey.
La palabra diaria, fortaleza. Centro en la fortaleza divina. Me siento seguro y en paz. Si lucho con una carga pesada, si me pregunto cuánto más lejos puedo llegar o cuánto tiempo más puedo resistir, confío en que mi fortaleza espiritual me mantiene en marcha.
She said, centered in divine strength, I am confident and peaceful. If I find myself struggling to bear the weight of a heavy load, if I am wondering how much farther I can travel or how much longer I can carry on, I rely on my spiritual strength to keep me going.
Al alinear mis pensamientos con este don divino, en lugar de centrarme en pesos que me llevo a la distancia que debo recorrer, accedo al poder de Dios que se manifiesta en mí. A través de esta fortaleza divina, soy renovado.
When I align my thoughts with this divine gift and not on the weight I carry or the distance I travel, I am tapping into the power of God expressing as me. Through divine strength, I am renewed and refreshed.
Tengo todo lo necesario para perseverar, reconociendo que la presencia de Dios viene a mí por diversos caminos. Puedo pedir ayuda y aceptarla amablemente cuando se me ofrece. Descanso, dedico tiempo a la oración y mis prácticas espirituales. Ante todo, permanezco fuerte y agradecido por el Dios que habita en mí.
I have everything I need to stay on the course. Knowing the presence of God comes to me through many channels. I may ask for help and accept it graciously when it comes. I give myself breaks and make time for prayer and my other spiritual practices. Through it all, I remain strong and grateful for God within me.
Por lo demás, hermanos míos, manténgase firme en el Señor y en el poder de su fuerza. Efesios 6:10.
Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his power. Ephesians 6:10.
So, we're trying something a little different, as you've noticed. You got your co-ministers up on bar stools. No bar, though. We want this year to be a time for new things. So we're going to be trying out some new things. And I hope you'll bear with us. They might work great. They might not work so great. And if they don't, we won't do it again. But here we are to share with you Black History Month, which is the month of February. And I'm going to start in a place that may seem odd because the 1st of February, we actually had a rabbi come talk to us, right? A rabbi. And honestly, that was the only date she could do it. So we said, well, then that's the right date. And as it turned out, her sharing of the story of Moses from the Jewish perspective, she also emphasized how that was the Black liberation story here in the U.S. And so it tied in just beautifully, kicking off this time that we celebrate and honor those who have stood in the forefront of bringing about unity, which is what we are about, into greater expression. It's interesting because why would we want to hear the Jewish story? Like, how is that helpful to us? Because unity in itself is not an interfaith movement. It is unity. But it lends itself so well to the power of the interfaith movement because we teach universal spiritual principles that, in my experience, and I've visited lots of religions outside of Christianity, are very foundational to every religious or spiritual practice that I've found. But there's something deeper when we want to be inclusive. There's something deeper that stirs within us that we're not always aware of. And by hearing other stories, we begin to recognize and be able to accept and include more. So let me share a quote from you. I have a little, oh, you got that, thank you. I have this little magnet on our refrigerator. It's from Unity World Headquarters, and it's a quote by Charles Fillmore. I think, yeah, we have it up there. And it says, "When people understand each other, love increases." Just think about that. This is one of my favorites, so I keep it up on the refrigerator. When people understand each other, love increases. Now, it's interesting to note that understand does not necessarily mean we agree. It doesn't mean we share the same perspective or have the same history or align in the same set of beliefs. It just means we understand each other a little better. So my experience in getting to know Rabbi Clears has been such a great experience for me because we've met through the interfaith group, so clearly we're available to talk to each other. And the more I have listened to her story and understood more the Jewish perspective and what Jewish people have been through their own history, the more I understand where she's coming from. Our theologies don't totally align. There's different sets of beliefs that they hold. But it has opened a space where we can join and connect. And what I've learned from her has enriched my own belief system. It has enriched my experience of God as an active principle living through each one of us. So that's the joy of hearing other people's stories. So that's what this talk is going to be about, is how, and this month, how do we deepen, truly deepen our understanding and our experience of inclusivity beyond just a word that we say. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Reverend Jim.
Well, one of the ways that we can deepen that idea of understanding each other, of experiencing inclusivity, is by sharing those stories, telling those stories, experiencing those stories, listening to others speak,
right,
and truly listening. I guess that's the word that comes to my mind. What we'd like to do is we'd like each of the next couple of Sundays, we're going to be featuring some of the key leaders within our movement. And this is one of those. This is Reverend Ruth Mosley. She made her transition a few years ago, so she's no longer here with us. But she shared with us this idea of commitment to love and acceptance. And that's what we want to talk today about. Her principle, her unity principle of inclusivity, showing up as love and acceptance. So, doing a little research as to her story, she had some bumps in her road. Is that a good way of saying that?
To say the least.
To say the least. She had some bumps in the road. But I'm proud to say that she weathered those bumps. She made it through those bumps as well.
She was a picture of strength that we just talked about in the
She
daily.
was the picture of strength, right. And today we're talking about strength and leading into peace as well with our daily word. But for Reverend Ruth, she heard the call to ministry in the 60s. 60s were a tumultuous time, maybe, for us in terms of our racial relationships. Or, yeah, wouldn't you say that? And she experienced a lot of that discrimination within the world itself, and I'm sad to say within Unity as well. Back then in the 60s, the only way to become an ordained minister was to become a student at the village itself and participate in that seminary on campus, right there on campus. And she did. She participated that in the 60s, but she also experienced that discrimination. She would be the first to say that while Unity spoke to the ideal of love and acceptance, it did not always practice it at an institutional level. So they taught to it, but the words didn't always walk the walk. Does that make sense? She gave some examples in her autobiography where she was actually within her seminary classes. She would ask questions of the instructors and she would be bored during class. And as a black woman in the 60s at the village, she was required to eat lunch in the back of the cafeteria. So when she was asked a few years later what needed to change within the Unity movement, within the village itself, Reverend Ruth would say that we need to educate black ministers. We need our own school, is what where she felt it needed. Years later, she created the Unity Urban Ministerial School. That school received full approval from the Unity Conference in 1979.
79.
That surprised me. 1979. So
She had to go through a few bumps.
she hit those bumps on her road. Between the 60s and the late 70s, she continued to make that proposal. She was ignored. She was told no over and over again until 1979, when finally she got full approval to move forward with the Unity Urban Ministerial School. The first graduating class of, we just call it UUMS, which is still a school within Unity. So we have multiple ways of becoming ministers within Unity. And this is still a very thriving school within our movement. The first graduating class were 8 students, and they're collectively known as the Detroit 8, and they graduated in 1982. Detroit, it was centered in Detroit. This is where Reverend Mosley started her church, was in Detroit, and started this school. It was also, later on, it was also the first church within the Unity movement to offer online courses. Asynchronous online courses, which I actually attended through some of my education as well. So I am grateful to Reverend Ruth for starting that school. With a deep belief in the principle of love and acceptance that we've talked about with Reverend Mosley, of those Unity principles, I am actually amazed that she didn't walk away from Unity. I'm amazed that she didn't walk away, but she sought to make those changes. She persevered from within the movement itself. and we're stronger and better for it.
You know what I'm thinking? Yeah.
What's that?
Well, we have the Spiritual Social Action Ministry that we are kicking off. Lawrence Tolliver is co-leading that. And this is really a perfect example of bringing spiritual principle into action to bring about change, to manifest a deeper experience of what unity really is. And know that while unity was in that place back at that time, many, many changes have occurred, and we'll share that with you at the very end. But Reverend Ruth Mosley was a powerful factor in bringing that change about. Because if she had walked away, it would not have happened. And she loved unity principles. Not only did she love them, but she felt so inspired and guided by them, she wanted to bring this out to more of the people who didn't look like everybody there. So she's just a great role model for what it is to truly bring spiritual principles about to make change in our society and in our world. So, you ready for me?
Yeah.
Okay. So 2 of the principles we wanted to look at that she so clearly exemplified are love and acceptance. So I'm going to just talk about love for a moment and just say, wow, love is a word we banter around a lot, isn't it? Love can mean so many different things the way it gets used in a very general sense. But the kind of love we're talking about today is metaphysical love, divine love. And there's a quote here by Eric Butterworth that I love to share. It's a little bit of a longer quote, so stay with me. He says, this is from Discover the Power Within book, which we studied in this past year. Jesus challenges us to get a good understanding of this thing called love. He says, you do not really love simply because you love those who love you. What does that prove? It's easy to be nice and friendly to those who are nice to you. It's no problem to love thy neighbor as long as we have something to say about who that neighbor might be. So let's think about, I can find this in my own experience in life. We tend to choose groups that are aligned with our thinking and perhaps the way we look and our past history and experience. And that becomes easy, right? Because we connect at those levels. But how about those that are outside of that circle, that are different, that have had different histories, that look different, that think different, that believe different? We don't get to choose our neighbors really because we are all connected. And that's the idea of love that we really want to look more deeply into. It goes on to say, love is not an emotion that begins in us and ends in the positive response of another. That's a beautiful love when we have that. Nothing wrong with that. That's a part of our human expression. It's beautiful, but that's not the love we're talking about. Eric Butterworth saying, love is a divine energy that begins in God and has no end. Love begins in God, in creative mind and spirit, and it extends out with no end. That means there isn't anything that is excluded from this. And not only that, but it is what deeply connects us as one. Eric Butterworth, by the way, was a very well-known and foundational unity teacher who fully supported Reverend Ruth Mosley in getting this urban school started with time and with providing service and money to support that movement. So one of the things that came to me as I'm thinking about this idea of love is, have you ever noticed when there are people who strongly disagree and maybe even dislike each other intensely, in a state of emergency, something life-threatening happens, something shifts, doesn't it? There is an instinctual response to come together and help each other. Think of the pictures that came out when there were hurricanes and floods and tornadoes. Neighbors who may have been fighting bitterly the day before are helping each other out of the wreckage of what used to be their homes. And I believe that's because that's the deeper love that we feel. It's there all the time. But it's in those moments of tragedy, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a tragedy, but something that shakes us out of our normal way of being, that melts those artificial boundaries we create between each other, and we just want to be there for each other. And that's the love we're really talking about.
Can I offer my example?
Oh yeah, please do.
So what came to mind when you were talking about this was the example of, and this back in a hurricane for me as well, but considering the what we talk about as the greatest generation, World War II. I mean, we may have been in our niches, we may have been in our neighborhoods, we may have been fighting in those, but we came together in a single purpose. And it was a good thing.
Yeah. There's so many stories, and I'm sure you have your own stories where it's even happened for you personally. From a metaphysical perspective, this is from the the Revealing Word, which gives us metaphysical meanings of words. And if you look up love, this is again by Charles Fillmore. He says, divine love is impersonal. It loves for the sake of loving. With what or who it loves, nor with the of love. But like the sun, its joy is in the shining forth of its nature. It is like the sun that shines forth because it's its nature to do that. Love loves because it's love. And now I'm going to move into now I'm going to turn it over to Reverend Jim to talk about how love supports acceptance and builds a deeper awareness of inclusivity.
And I would say that we move from love into acceptance, and maybe our English language would call that inclusivity, is what I would argue as well. So love, acceptance, inclusivity. My way back, so I'm going back into my way back machine, I'm going into my time travel. My first self-help book, and think about, when did you discover self-help books for yourself? Mine was back in 1976, maybe, and it was Wayne Dyer. Who else discovered self-help through Wayne Dyer? This book was on the shelf of my in-laws' house, The Erroneous Zones.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Anyway, I devoured that back there, and Wayne Dyer stayed in my repertoire for years after that. One of my favorite quotes of his is that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. But we're spiritual, having that human experience. That is the essence. That is the underlying basic principle of who we are. It's not that we're just stumbling around on this planet and that we check in on spirituality every once in a while. We are spiritual beings. We just happen to be having a human experience. So we always want to ask ourselves the question of, when anything shows up in our world, what does this mean spiritually? If you can ask yourself that question whenever something tricky or something difficult shows up in your life, whenever something hits you over the head, what is the spiritual principle that I can apply or live or show up as? That's what we want to do. That's what we want to do. How does our human experience, and my next question, as we talk about this spirituality of who we really are, how does this human experience of racism, inequality, exclusivity, translate into a spiritual solution for us? Maybe that's a little trickier. Reverend Ruth experienced racism back in the 60s. She made steps in the right direction. She hung on to that spiritual principle of inclusivity. And she thrived by doing that. She created within this human experience UUMS. And I would say she succeeded tremendously in that as well.
And it's interesting to note that while her initial goal was to train Black ministers for urban ministries, inner city, over the years, the school has expanded, and it's now one of the most diverse Unity schools we have. So it's not just for Black students, it's for anyone who wants to come in. And it's no longer just for urban ministries, it's for all of them. So what she created has continued to grow and expand and be an expression of the inclusiveness of the diversity of how we can express ourselves through unity and share these principles with the world.
And I would argue as well that that principle of inclusivity that she lived with, that she showed us, also showed up for us in terms of our progress. Because during the 80s, we stumbled as a movement with another exclusivity principle. We weren't ordaining gay ministers. She pointed us in the right direction for that. Why aren't we? I believe she would have asked, and that question was asked of the movement. Why aren't we embracing the unity of humanity like we say we should? And we do. We ordain regardless
Include,
of,
accept, open.
we open. And I wonder sometimes, what are we, and this is just a question that I maybe struggle with a little bit. Not struggle is not the right word, but that I just ponder. I wonder, what is it that we are, what is showing up for us that is a change that we will embrace in the future? When 20 years from now, it's like, we used to be doing that. How crazy is that, right? So can we open our eyes? Can we peel that back and be open to all forms, all flavors, all colors, all whatever within this human experience as well? The Apostle Paul, in his epistle to the church in Rome, so Romans, is quoted as saying, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." And that's what takes me back. It's like we can sometimes get caught up in what the world is doing, what seems to be normal. It's like, oh no, that's just normal. Racism was normal back in the 50s, right?
Yeah.
We can sometimes get caught up in what the world thinks is okay. Can we go beyond that into what is truly spiritual and oneness as well? I think of right now some of our struggle politically. I see that and I wonder, have we normalized anger within our society? And that seems to be a challenge that we're dealing with these days. Can we overcome that and find a spiritual solution to and live in love and acceptance and inclusivity, which is the spiritual principle to that? So not to be swayed by the popularity of ideas from that outside world, but instead finding the answers within and in a spiritual nature. The answer to that experience is that we live and we teach that we live these spiritual principles from the inside out. We don't take our cues from the outside and apply them in, right? The world may show us things that we don't necessarily need to embrace. And I just wonder what the next big thing is for us to embrace
It's a
in terms of
Good
inclusivity?
question.
Yeah.
We'll
know-
ponder that. We'll ponder that in our class. We'll open it up for
I'm sure that
discussion.
will come up next week in our class. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We know that the strongest force in this world are our spiritual principles. And we do. We talk about those here on each week. We talk about those when we talk about unity principles, bringing us closer to our oneness with God. That's what we come back to over and over again. We learn to live and learn and talk about those principles over and over again. And our daily practice is to live the truth as we know it. That's our fifth unity principle. We live the principles that we know. So we talk about them, we recite them, we share with each other in classes, and then we live them. We bring them into practice, maybe even outside these walls, in the traffic on the road, in the grocery store. We put them into practice as well. Unity has made a lot of progress in terms of inclusivity, and I'm proud of that. We've told stories of where we've stumbled, of that rocky road, but I'm proud of the statements that we now apply to our movement as well. And let me just read that out loud. This was Unity Worldwide Ministries responding to some of the things that happened in the past few years, responding to George Floyd, responding to Black Lives Matter, responding to the stuff that showed up in our world. These are the words that were published in response to that. We recognize and honor the divine within. I'm going to stop here. The divine within each of us. Eddie Watkins Jr. talked about black, white, gay, straight, Buddhist, Hindu. Let me keep reading. We recognize and honor the divine within as the one common denominator that we share on our human journey. We are all part of that human journey together. Hopefully hand in hand. That's the journey. Can we recognize that denominator, that common denominator, is our divinity? What do you think?
Yes.
Yes, I say yes as well.
Indeed.
Okay, shall we wrap this up?
Yes.
Okay. Know that I love you, I
Well-
bless you,
We're going to do meditation.
and we're going to do a meditation, but I appreciate you and I see the Christ in you. We're going to do...
So we would like to now take a moment to take these words, this message, however it works, as you have heard, however it resonates within you in your heart, and let's go deep into meditation and allow Spirit to work within each one of us. So I invite you to gently close your eyes if that's comfortable. Sit back in your chair and let yourself just relax into this present moment exactly as it is. With whatever is coming up for you, with whatever feelings you have in your body and in your mind and your heart, give them all space to just be here right now. Take a moment to put your focus on the flow of your breath, following it in and out. In and out. This is a great way to become present in the here and now. Now take a moment to intentionally focus on your heart. You may actually feel your heart space. You may visualize the light there. You may feel a sense of warmth. It may just feel like a vibration. Just come to that place you know as your heart. And we take a moment to assess whether our hearts feel open fully, or is there of our heart is closed? No judgment. This is not good or bad. This is about simply paying attention to the opportunity. Notice if there's a spot in your heart that feels closed. Closed in the community who's different by how they look, how they speak, maybe how they behave. Who is my heart closed to in this community? Who is it I feel doesn't belong? And you don't have to share this with anyone, just be totally honest with yourself. As you're thinking about this, as I'm thinking about this, I notice in my body anywhere that feels like it's tensing or constricting. Take a moment to notice if you feel a tightness anywhere, a trigger anywhere, any sense of discomfort that might be calling your attention. No judgment, just notice. And we take this moment then to shine a light right into that spot. Shine a light into that area where we may be impervious to a bias we hold. It may be a blind spot I haven't been aware of. But with that light, I am ready to open my vision and expand my heart. Can we collectively open our vision to see and expand our heart to include without judgment or discernment? Just open. And as we open, we feel that light expand and fill that space that had been closed. Together we let this space that we live in, we pray in, we serve in, we experience fellowship and community in. We let that space expand to encompass all. We expand inclusivity's embrace just by our intention to create this space in our own heart that lets others in. For as within, so without. And when you are ready, begin to move your attention back to your physical body, the space in the sanctuary. But know that the light, the expansion, and the love that you have created in this moment continues to shine, to grow, and to encompass all. Bring this sense with you as you move into your day. With joy, with gratitude, and with a deep appreciation for knowing these truth principles and learning to live them. So it is. Namaste.
Amen. Reverend Lisa, you said, when I'm ready. I'm not ready.
Okay.
I want to stay within the meditation. If
I know.
that's okay with
Me,
you.
me too.
I just want to stay in that warmth and that
We might have
light
to
that's
move our annual
imagined.
meeting.
Okay. Well, you can join us in that as well.
Let's bring that into the annual meeting.
Absolutely.
That's
I
awesome.
would like to shout out before we move on to our tech. Alan, Will, and Jim are our Sunday tech crew, and I want to give them some kudos. Nice job, guys. Nice job, guys. And now is the time service it's our offertory time of our service. So we know that as we give, we receive, and it's through your generous gifts that we continue to be a light within this community as Unity of Charlotte. So let's go back to consistent giving. So we know we have different ways of giving. We have our online, you can actually text from your phone. We have your own bill pay system. You can scan that QR code with your camera as well. These are all different, as well as the plates that will be coming around now. So we have different ways of giving. Please join me in this prosperity blessing. Joyously I give this gift, knowing the divine presence blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. Come on forward. The light of God surrounds us. We are light. The love of God enfolds us. We are love. The power of God protects us. We are power. The presence of God watches over us. We are presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.